Hello and a warm welcome to Federal special program Capital Beat. Five Indian Army personnel were killed on July 8 after terrorists ambushed an army convoy in Badnota village, which is about 124 kilometers from the Kathua town in Jammu. Now, this is the fourth terror attack in the state within 48 hours and the latest in a series of attacks in the last few months. If you remember, there was an attack in Riyasi on June 9th, the day when Prime Minister was swearing in for the third time. And this attack was on the pilgrims. So, why is this Jammu area becoming a fertile ground for the militants? Is this some kind of a shift in the trend? How would one see this? Joining me now is Major General Yash Mor, who has spent two tenures of his service life in Jammu, and he's been there as an active personnel. Thank you, sir, so much for joining. And let me inform the viewers that he was posted in Kashmir when the militancy was at its peak. General Yash Mor, thank you so much for joining on the Federal. And my first question to you is that why are we seeing these sudden series of attacks in Jammu? Do you see this as some kind of a change in uh, in the way the militants are approaching the area, or what is the reason according to you?
Uh, Nilu, firstly, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, I have a reasonably good experience of fighting in the Kashmir Valley and also in Punch, Rajouri, and Jammu region. All three regions, in fact, I've served at a reasonably senior level in actual contact, you can say. Now, coming to your question, see, between the security forces and the terrorists or militants or insurgents, whatever you may call them, there is always, catch up going on latest tactics and strategy. So they try to always stay one step ahead, and our job is to ensure that before the trend changes, we are prepared for it. But mostly because security forces are large in size, decisions are taken at very very higher level, and it takes some time to for a a pattern to be established. Then we are generally in the reactionary mode because we don't know when and where the next time the terrorist will strike. So the initiative is with them because they are nimble footed, they are small teams, and highly determined. And now the trend is, especially in this Jammu region and Punch Rajouri, they are highly trained. You can see the imprint of SSG type of training with some of these guys. So they are hardened, Pakistani trained, Lashkar or whatever Tanzim they belong to. So they're always looking at us continuously. We are always visible openly. Our camps are visible, our movements are visible. Army really can't hide itself. Our very presence gives confidence to the people, and this is what these people are monitoring. Now, what has
Yeah.
happened is,
So, General Yashmore, despite the ceasefire in process, and if we are seeing an uptick in the terror incidents, don't you think that this is a matter of concern? Because if there is a ceasefire in process, and if despite all that there are a series of attacks, how does it really concern them?
see, yeah, ceasefire is holding. There is nothing, on the line of control. Not a single shot is being fired from both the armies, and there appears to be all okay there. We have a wire fence even in this region, which border fence. We have good technology. We have, many ways of seeing what is happening. However, in the interior areas is where we are getting surprised. These areas are where we are thinly deployed, and there are lines of communication are wide and spread, and a lot of movement of vehicles takes place for logistics, for people going on leave, or for other small many other things, and the jungle, mountainous terrain, sparsely populated. You can't guard every inch of ground. The moment you start doing that, then we get into a fortress mentality. So they are probably the one major reasons at strategic level I see is they want to keep debunking this, that after 370 everything is very nice, and it's Naya Kashmir and people are very happy, and that could be one. Secondly, Kashmir, because of our deployment and so many other things, and there is fatigue now. People are also sick of this everyday terror action. So probably people are no longer ready to host them or support them and all. This area was lying vacant for 20 years, fertile ground, easy to, once you infiltrate, you can move through. Teams of 2, 4, 5 people can move through easily here. And they are striking, just see the pattern they are doing. They're picking up different units, different timings. They're picking up convoys which seldom get attacked. They're mostly unarmed, or they're least expected. They're using very, very new places where action has never taken place. So
Hmm.
they have changed the narrative here. Probably the troops that had gone out from this region to eastern Ladakh when the Chinese crisis took place. So there is a vacuum here. There's a vacuum of village defense committees, the police forces, the army. Everything appears to be thin here. So that is why probably
Don't you
they
think
feel.
that, but don't you think that this is one area where the government is not focusing too much? If there is over deployment in the eastern Ladakh at the line of actual control, but one cannot ignore this area because it's still fertile. There are terror attacks happening. So is the government not focusing too much on this area?
Yeah, see, government, unfortunately, that's what I saying. Government, army, their decisions are, taken in a reactionary mode. It takes time. You just can't move troops in a hurry. Moving battalions, headquarters takes planning, logistics, establishment of camps, and also it doesn't happen that easily. What we can do is, I think, we should use more of the specialized troops. We should use technology, and more than that, human intelligence. So what are our village defense committees doing? What are our people on the ground, the police thanas and the intelligence bureaus, which work closely with people on
No, no,
ground? And
uh,
also,
but
yeah.
but General Yashmore, all this happens only when there is a certain trust, between the entire framework which is there. We see a certain level of trust deficit when it comes to these areas like Rajouri and Punch, because there are a lot of homegrown militants now on the rise. And so, how does one really trust? Even if you're talking about the human intelligence, you're talking about the local thanas, but then the trust factor is not there. How does one develop that?
See, Niluji, trust takes time to develop. And I've been speaking on this to people who matter, that human intelligence is a game of patience and more patience. And you really have to open your heart to people. Only then people come to you. Imagine somebody wanting to give you information. For that, he must trust you, and that you're a well-meaning person. So that takes 6 months to 1 year, and it is very, very laborious. You actually have to go to villages, walk when they are not in the shadow of the gun, but otherwise go and help them, go and do projects for them, and appear to be very, very genuine. I've we had amazing internet work in South Kashmir, local Kashmiri people wanting to help us, but uske liye you really have to have a lot of empathy, a lot of touch with people, right? School students, teachers, old people, women, everyone, they must feel ki ha ye banda jo na ye genuine hai, we must help them. So that takes time. Unfortunately, I don't know what is the deployment pattern there. And that should take place at the cutting edge. That means the company commanders, that means the platoon leaders, commanding officers. Beyond that, I don't think 1 star, 2 star can really develop this kind of. They can use technology, they can provide you resources, and they can with the police and all coordination, but it requires at the cutting edge very, very dedicated small teams, young officers who are happy to slug it out for 6 months, 1 year, and then results will start coming. Human intelligence is a game of patience and labor, hard labor. It doesn't happen that easily.
But in the present scenario, the kind of attacks which we are seeing, there is a certain pattern. First, we saw targeted killings. Then there were these isolated attacks, which were called the lone wolf attacks. Now, what do you think is the strategy of the militants? And these, of course, are homegrown militants who are surfacing time and again. Now, what do you think is the strategy of these militants? Because until unless we know that, how would the forces really counter? And the forces are not able to counter these militants, the homegrown militants.
See, firstly, Niluja, I don't think there is sufficient evidence to say these are homegrown militants. They could very well, most likely, they are SSG trained, they are Pakistani trained, They have infiltrated some time back. They're physically tough. They understand tactics. They understand movement. They have good weapon systems. They have very good communication systems. They have a network through which they are operating. So they are not run of the mill kind of terrorists, who one action and they want to glorify. No, these are guys, and they are not getting caught. Riyasi happened so many months back, so many days back. 9 killed. We don't know who were there. In spite of now, this has happened earlier. Also, we have had incidents of 48 RR in Surankot area. Again, mutilated bodies. And so what they're trying to do, I think, is firstly they want to remove this feeling in the international community and here that 370 has been a miracle and people are very happy. That is the first thing. So since then, then elections are coming. Peacefully elections took place. Lok Sabha elections, first time I'm seeing in last 30 years. There's no boycott call. People voted, very good percentage. And now we are looking forward to the assembly elections. So probably they want to, get more people deployed. Once, the army, police, they get deployed here, more density of troops will be there. The moment you put troops on ground, there are, people start facing problems. Then there are naka, there are checkpoints. So log dukhi honge, and they will blame the security forces for that. So it's a mix.
No, but
Very difficult to.
are you saying, General Yash Mor, that the militants, why they are attacking and attacking so frequently is that they want to disrupt this perception which is made out by the government that everything is normal after the revocation of Article 370. So are they trying to puncture that perception? But how
That
normal is the situation? According to
Yeah,
you,
that is
how
what they're
normal
trying
is
to
it?
do.
Yeah.
Exactly. That is I think number one. At least internationally, they want to say that by removing 370 and trying to challenge the narrative. The challenge in the narrative was that you see the kind of tourism boom in Kashmir Valley, no incidents of stone throwing, no standoff attacks, and industry wanting to invest there. By and large, a lot of positive movement on job creation, sports, and other things. But this area where we were, the Pahadi area where Gujar Bakarwals move, this is the area where, they have chosen to now start attacking us in very, very remote areas. Can't even expect they would do this in Kathua, so deep inside our territory. And so this is a new pattern. That is why I say these are all very, very, well trained, very motivated, very well equipped. So now what we need, it's going to be a combination of factors to challenge this. And technology, of course, we have drones, UAVs, intelligence gathering, but we need boots on ground. Insurgency is a battle of people on ground. So whatever you may have, even the best of the militaries get defeated if you don't have human intelligence, if you don't have contact. And for that, I keep telling my students that the center of gravity of any counterinsurgency is the people. It is not the gun, it is the people. So you have to get people on your side. अगर लोग नाराज है तो क्यों नाराज, आपको पता करना पड़ेगा. And that takes effort. Neelu, log itni jaldi, it's not easy to win over people by just one visit and all. So it needs a multi-directional approach to sanitize this area and ensure we don't have any such sad incidents, of people getting killed in vehicles, no time to even retaliate. And
Right.
by the time reinforcements come, we come to know 1.5 hours, people are belted away into jungles, and you really can't locate thickly, wooded areas. No UAV or drone can pick up, and their
But,
equipment, I believe, is such. Yeah,
General Yash Mor, even if you deploy all the technology, but just augmenting the troops on the ground, will that resolve the problem? The kind of attacks which we are seeing, like the ones in Riyasi or the latest attack which we saw, just augmenting the troops, will that help?
it
When on
does.
the ground the situation is so volatile.
Yeah, it does help. The moment, see, when we say counterinsurgency grid, it means it is like a chessboard. You look at the chessboard, or you open the map, and you come to know which are the areas where there are no troops, and actions, incidents have taken place. Very important road communication links are there, or rail links are there, or any vulnerable institutions are located there. So the moment you put troops on ground, then Imagine a company put on ground, it can dominate an area of about 25 square kilometers very easily. So that much of area, they're also scared. They also know the might ki once there is a contact with the Indian army, with Rashtriya Rifles or regular army, then there is very difficult, very easy, not easy to get away once a contact is established. So they don't want contact. They will hit you at the most vulnerable place, most vulnerable time, when you least expect. These vehicles don't even have a quick reaction team with them. A lone vehicle or two vehicles or an ambulance or a vehicle which is carrying rations or hitting the pilgrims, in a civil bus, this kind of thing very difficult to eliminate unless we augment the troops on ground and establish a pattern. It's like a spider web. You have to establish a pattern, and then it will take time for us to sanitize the area, then connect with the people. So easy to augment, but will take 5-6 months for really sincere
No,
work
but
to get rid of.
General Yash Mor, but is it is the concern the priority, the way the government is prioritizing? Because all the focus is on the line of actual control, where all the deployment is happening, in eastern Ladakh. So obviously, this region gets ignored. You don't have that kind of manpower. You're not using that kind of technology, in this part of Kashmir. So how will the government prioritize that? Whether you focus on LAC or whether you focus on LOC. How does one focus its deployment, the technology, everything? I mean, how do you position that?
See, when this thing happened on in eastern Ladakh, in Galwan area or around Pengongso Lake 4 years back, I did write and speak on this, that whatever has happened, we must contain the situation at that and let the military to military talks continue, and let's resolve. Military can resolve issues with military. The moment you put diplomats into it, the moment the military, the political leadership get involved of each other's country, it becomes very difficult after that. Now we have such high density of troops in eastern Ladakh, and 4 years nothing has happened. I don't think we even fear that, or any I don't know, people on top must be able to analyze what China is planning there. But those troops, much of some of them have gone from these areas where for 20 years there was no militancy, no insurgency at all. So they thought probably, and same thing happened. Now we are celebrating 25 years of Kargil. Kargil also happened because we pulled out troops from there to be deployed in the valley area, and then we had huge gaps which were exploited. So we have to be, I think there is a need, Niluji, for us to find a solution on the China front, on the LAC. LAC cannot be allowed to be converted to an LC, because China doesn't deploy troops. They have gone back wherever they came from. But we are there. We are there. So we
But
need to find.
but how does, because China, there are reports that China is rebuilding its reinforcements on our ground, on the Indian ground. There are reports where they've built villages, they've reinforced their entire systems, and that is on the Indian side of the government. I mean, Indian side of the land. So obviously, the government will try and focus there more, because here on the LOC front, the government would be happy, and I'm talking in terms of the political narrative, that government will say that, okay, we can do a surgical strike or we can do an airstrike and tackle Pakistan, but then it's difficult to tackle China. That's a challenge before the government.
So we don't have to fight China. Tackling China is tackling is wrong word. We must manage China. We must manage LAC, and we must go back to why, since from 62 to 2020, almost 50 years, we had no skirmishes, no fighting, little bit of pushing, shoveling, throwing each other down, stone throwing, nothing more than that. So we must try and build confidence building measures with China, and even with Pakistan. I think that time of what happened in 2019 and all, now is not the time. Now is not the time to go for that. And there are no rhetoric from Pakistan side. Pakistan economy is in doldrums. Uh,
Yes.
Even their new political leadership is speaking of peace. The army is also not making any statement. They want to
Yes.
just keep us deployed at that below the threshold level. That
Hmm.
keep once in a while one strike, and
No, but then the
yeah.
next question is that if Pakistan is not interested at all, and if they are keeping quiet, the army is keeping quiet. So how does one really manage the things? And as far as these local militants are concerned, Now, are they being trained by Pakistan? How are they getting trained? What is the technology they are using? And how much do you rely on these militants if they are homegrown? All those things are there. So, how does one manage these militants who are on the Indian side, and many feel that they are Indians themselves who are being trained by the Pakistanis?
See, Nilu, actually, recently, I think the DG J&K police came out with a figure of what, I don't know, 60, 70 militants is what we have. So that is not much of a, for the kind of forces we have, the kind of deployment, intelligence agencies, everything we have. It's not very alarming. Gone are the days when they were there in thousands. Now they're less than, I would say, less than three figure. They're in two figure available. So that should not be an issue. Then we must also see which are the areas from where, if there are local militants, if from which areas are they being recruited, why they are being recruited, what is their motivation to join, when bulk of India, there is a different kind of a ideology. People want to get jobs, people are working. Yeah. So we must find out and address those issues, because insurgency thrives on a feeling of being left out, on poverty, on unemployment. These are major issues anywhere. So we must find out which are the areas, who are the people who are recruiting them. So that is why all this will require human intelligence. This drones can't give you, this no technology can give you. For that, you really need to reach out to the people, young people on the ground, motivated, inspired. When I was in South Kashmir 20 years back, I used to walk 20 to 30 kilometers a day in mountainous terrain for 6 months before I built this confidence in people. Banda sahi hai, and they started giving you information, when they start trusting you. So that takes really a lot of patience, a lot of perseverance, and a lot of hard work to win over people. There are our own people. So even if our own boys are going that side, we must be more empathetic. We must try and find out, convince their parents. That kind of a thing we were able to do. Tell people who are on the verge of this, or if they're just gone, if you have any contact, call them back. And there's always a way to, the state and the can be more generous with our boys. So it's a combination of hard power and combination of soft power. So the spectrum is wide, but you
But there is
need.
another question, General Yash Mor, there's another question which people keep asking, that, despite all the tall claims made by the government that after the revocation of Article 370, Kashmir is very, very normal. But in actuality, what is the practical scenario? Is it really normal, or the government is just making claims? How do you see it?
Kashmir, we haven't seen other than one odd targeted killing, one odd, contact will happen. Abhi Kulgam, we had, four terrorists gunned down. One odd incident will happen. So I think situation has really improved for the better. But this is worrying. Why this area, where we have Hindu population, majority Hindu population, there are no staging areas available to them. Hindus will never give them. If they are identified very quickly, they will be located, pinned down, and hunted down. So this is worrying to me, how they are able to survive, what kind of equipment they have, what kind of who is helping them, who are the overground workers. So this we need to deliberate and identify areas where they could strike next, be proactive, a lot
No,
of
but
aggressive
why do
patrolling.
you think that the forces are not able to understand, the strategies which are initiated by the militants? Why do you think they are a mystery and the forces have not been able to find out why they are
See,
so active in Jammu area? Yeah.
I really don't know. I'm not in touch with anyone who is really operating on the ground there. But I think the senior leadership, they must step forward. They must step forward and encourage the junior leadership to come out. And we should not get into fortress mentality. I'm not in favor of creating camps and fortresses and guarding them well. No, not required. We should be more out in the open and very, very, I should say, aggressive domination of the area. We used to call area domination. So you should be appearing in these areas at a time when you're not expected. Small operations, small teams. You don't need big columns. You need young officer led 10 boys can do what many units can't do. At least that has been my experience. So highly motivated. Use of special forces must be done very deliberately, very diligently, only where it is going to get you result. Just frittering away your special forces. Also, we had so many attacks, on special forces also in the Rajouri sector. So that is also one part. So a combination of police, Rashtriya Rifles, the regular army, the special forces, good intelligence, the J&K police and the army working right from top. Now there are different headquarters. Kashmir is different headquarter. This is different headquarter, different command altogether. So it requires a lot of coordination. I'm sure after all these incidents, there must be a lot of brainstorming and finding a way
Right.
forward. And we have done it earlier, so I have no reason to believe we will not come out with a good strategy and ensure these things don't happen in the future now.
Right. One last question, General Yash Mor, before I wind up the interview. That now that Jammu and Kashmir will be holding its own elections, and by September they should, I mean, according to the Supreme Court order, the elections should have been held by September. Now I don't know what the dates, how and when the dates would be announced by the Election Commission, but do you fear that these kind of targeted killings, these kind of random attacks which are happening in the Jammu region might increase in the coming days?
I don't know. See, I can't predict what is going to happen, but we must hold elections. If we can hold it in 2002 at the peak and hold it earlier, today this is not much. So there is no reason, if we panic and now postpone elections, that will appear to be a strategic defeat for us. So we must hold elections. People don't have their local representatives. They need to have their MLA. They need to have their representatives with whom they can go and get their work done. वो जो उनकी सुनवाई कर सके. So elections must be held. September is a Supreme Court ruling. So anytime September is good weather, that is good time to hold elections, September, October. So elections must be held. And Indian state is much too big and powerful to get worried about these. Yeah, these are tactical level actions. The army will have to pull up its socks, find out why it is happening, and be more proactive, be more aggressive, connect with people. You have taken a hit now. Ensure that now you learn from it instead of being harsh on the people. So people are the center of gravity. I want to repeat that. Without their support, no force in the world can succeed, beat back any insurgency if people are not with you. So लोगों को साथ लेके चलना है, उसके लिए आपने तरीका ढूंढना है, how you do it. That has been my learning wherever I have operated in insurgency areas.
Right. It's always wonderful to listen to you, Major General Yash Mor. Thank you so much for joining on the Federal. And one appeal to the viewers who are watching this interview: subscribe to our channel, send us your feedback, and stay tuned to the Federal.